my name is Dr. Julie Ellison. I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to the fourth panel for the Middle East Sci-Fi in Translation Conference. And this is a joint conference put on by the University of Texas Center for Middle Eastern Studies and the University of Arizona Center for Middle Eastern Studies. And I'm going to do very brief introductions on our two wonderful speakers today. Now, without further ado, I will introduce Sonia Nimr. Sonia Nimr is a Palestinian writer, researcher, and academic born in Jenin in 1955. She is a professor of philosophy and cultural studies at Birzeit University of Ramallah, Palestine, and is known for her distinguished contributions to academic research in the fields of oral history and collective memory. She's published over 24 books for children and young adults and has been awarded numerous prizes, including the Etisalat Award at the Sharjah Festival in 2014 for Wondrous Journeys in Strange Lands in 2013, her novel Thunderbird in 2016, which is amazing, and it won the 2018 Sharjah Reading Festival Prize. And 3 of her books appear on the honored list of the International Board on Books for Young People, based in Switzerland in 2004, 14, and 24. So her work has been translated into so many languages, including Danish, English, Farsi, French, Portuguese, Slovenian, and Spanish, amongst other languages. And Professor Nimr has been nominated for several prestigious international prizes, such as Sweden's Astrid Lindgren Award in 2016, 18, and 22, and the IBBY's Hans Christian Andersen Award in 2016. And then I will turn it over to her, and I can do Maria Dadouch's introduction next. So.
Oh, shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, hello. Before I start, please bear with me because I have 2 persons in my head fighting each other. One is the academic, the other one is the writer. So sometimes one wins over. So please bear with me. I have written something and I would like to read it. I hope it's not too long. Okay, this is the academic speaking now. This paper is an attempt to explore the definition of science fiction and its significance in Arabic tradition. For indeed, ancient Arab history, from its pre-Islamic roots through the writings of the 13th century and beyond, addressed the concept of science fiction in diverse ways. The linguistic translation of science fiction does not easily correspond in Arabic. For example, khayal ilmi translates to scientific imagination, not fiction in the conventional way. This attempt is to show modern Arabic literature. Thunderbird Trilogy, that is my book that we've been talking about, as an example, stands in this context and in the science fiction genre at the same time. In certain contexts, many literary critics consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, published in 1818, to be the first representative work of science fiction, to be followed later by her novel The Last Man, which also became one of the post-apocalyptic works, thus establishing that genre in science fiction. However, in Arabic context, some may argue that roots of such genres can be traced back to an old Syrian guy in the year 125, that is the 2nd century, whose his book, True Story, Goes to the Moon. He goes in his book, A True Story, Goes to the Moon, with fellow travelers, where they encounter strange creatures and witness a war between moon people and sun people over colonizing Venus. Both parties used bizarre beings in their fight. Another example, actually, in the traditional Arabic literature is Al-Qazwini, where in his books, Wondrous Creatures and Strange Beings, he described the skies, the planets, their movements, the earth, geographies, islands, plants. This actually qualifies it to be a scientific book in the 13th century. However, his description of angels around the skies, and he delves into the realm of metaphysics along with his depiction of strange creatures and beings that sets his work as close as it can be to the modern notion of science fiction. I'm going to cut a little bit piece and go. Sorry about this. Sounds really boring, but okay. As khayal itself can mean spirit, ghost, apparition, fantasy, vision, and trace, as Ian Campbell puts it, or simply imagination, as I can see it. Defined as such, this means that anything imagined can fall within this category. Although the word ilm means science, here it can encompass all fields of science. It could refer to medicine, chemistry, or even sciences of religion or grammar. The word alim in Arabic means scholar, whether in science or religion or any other field of study. Therefore, the definition of science fiction in Arabic context becomes reduced and even limited if we simply attempt to try to fit it into a definition suitable for other contexts, such as American or European definitions. In other words, imagination in Arabic can encompass anything and everything beyond the usual or the normal. Scientific imagination can be seen in Thousand and One Nights, where Sinbad goes through various adventures that have been translated into many languages over the centuries. Sinbad is depicted as a sailor and adventurer who embarks on a series of voyages across the seas, facing giant ape-like creatures and giant rock bird and other strange beings while confronting danger and adversity. This leads to the need to examine the concept of khayal ilmi in the context of fantasy that encounters with jinn. 1001 Nights has many stories that involve jinn and ghouls, creatures from other dimensions that enter, mingle, and interact with human realm. These stories describe their world, though not in extensive detail. Ghouls usually primarily inhabit dark places underground, often in wells. They are usually described as ugly, monstrous with red eyes and goat-like feet, capable of devouring humans in seconds. Jinn, on the other hand, remain somewhat mysterious. We know that some are good, mostly Muslim jinn, of course, and some are evil, capable of harming people and taking over their bodies. Jinn can also take the shapes of animals, often appearing as cats, but not Robin Williams or Will Smith. Jinn ghouls beings continue to appear in Arabic oral folktale and later in modern literature, especially that which invokes fantasies. Thus, jinn are used in modern scientific fiction as creatures coming to the human world from other dimensions. For example, in Hojan, a novel published in 2013 by Abbas Ibrahim, a Saudi writer, the story revolves around a jinni who falls in love with a human woman and saves her from evil jinn and other humans. In recent years, film and television have played a significant role in standardizing genre archetypes, resulting in little debate about how to classify many films like Spider-Man, for example, or Iron Man, which are commonly viewed as key examples of science fiction. These genres have emerged from the variety of cultural influences, providing authors with rich storytelling resources. However, as technology continues to advance, there is a trend towards a more uniform definition of genres, where unique cultural differences are often overshadowed by commercial interests. This shift raises important questions about the future of genre diversity and representation of distinct cultural narratives in popular media. Here, the translation of various cultural works while preserving their unique context and diverse interpretations of the genre can effectively counteract the dominance of commercial definitions. This approach not only enhances the richness of the genre, but also significantly enriches the audience's experiencing, allowing for a deeper appreciation of the remarkable diversity within science fiction. Did I lose you or are you still there?
We are here.
More contemporary examples of these themes in Arabic literature encompasses a range of genres. For instance, in the realm of ilm, applied sciences, Nora Noman's novel Ajwan tells a story of a girl whose planet is destroyed, prompting her to travel between planets. On the other hand, the theme of khayal, fantasy, is explored by authors like Egyptian writer Sabri Musa, known for his dystopia narratives, and Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq, whose works seemingly blend adventure, fantasy, and science fiction. Okay, now for the fun part. Now I would like to read a quote from my book, Thunderbird, to showcase the definition of science fiction within its own cultural context. Here it goes. The museum is closing soon. We'll have to come back tomorrow, Dr. Samir said. Then an idea occurred to him. Put on the ring. Noor put on the ring, but nothing happened. They were in a race against time. So the doctor said, press the ring against the seal. It's just an experiment, but who knows? She set the ring over the engraving, and to her amazement, they matched perfectly. The voice came on again, announcing the museum's imminent closure. Noor's anxieties rose. She said in a shaky voice, nothing happened. The time gate isn't. Then she yelped, what's happening? What's happening? What? It's pulling me, she shouted. It's pulling me. I'm scared. The doctor was staring at her in shock, since it seemed to him that Noor's hand was disappearing through something were pulling her into the decorative panel. Her arm disappeared up to her elbow. So he reached out and gripped her other hand. He too was shivering violently. Whatever force was pulling her back was stronger than he was. Half of her body was already gone. Help me, she shouted. What? The last thing she saw was the doctor's hand raised in terror, his face gone pale and bloodless. His eyes bulged. His mouth was open in soundless scream, and a black cat stood beside him. Then the darkness swallowed her up. Noor felt she was swimming in dark emptiness. Nothing, no pain, no feelings, no thoughts, no fears, nothing. She felt nothing except that she was swimming in silence. End of quote. If I ask those who did not read the books, where do you think Noor went and where did she end up? The answers will vary and each answer will invoke different genre. For example, if she had ended up in an underground room with a dead body, then we would be talking about murder and mystery. If she had ended up in an enchanted forest with talking trees, or had met a jinn from another dimension, then it would be a fantasy. If she went to another planet, met aliens, or found herself in a secret room with a scientist trying to mix human and plant genes, then, or if she traveled to another time or another dimension, then we are talking science fiction. Here, hence the trilogy, returning to my earlier talk about definition of khayal ilmi, will fall into 3 or 4 genres at the same time, where Al-Qazwini meets Ala ad-Din and Sinbad. In Thunderbird trilogy, I merge fantasy with science fiction, incorporating time travel either back to history or to other dimensions, all within framework of realism that makes the novels difficult to classify under one category if this context is ignored. In these 3 books, Noor went through adventures with the help of the jinn. She encounters strange creatures in every book. Some are friendly and helpful, while others are disgusting, monstrous, and very harmful. In the trilogy, although she travels through time and dimensions, her real world and real time remain very much in her mind. So it is difficult to classify the Thunderbird trilogy under one category, especially if we take in mind the standardized definitions, because they will see it as not strictly science fiction due to its strong fantasy elements, such as magical powers and jinn, which align more with fantasy than traditional science fiction. Its narrative is deeply rooted in cultural folklore, potentially putting it within magical realism rather than pure science fiction. To conclude, and I'm sure your patience and my breath are out, if I return to what I said earlier about definition of khayal ilmi in Arabic literature and put the book in its contextual heritage, we see that Thunderbird can be classified as science fiction due to its blend of supernatural elements and speculative themes. The protagonist, Noor, possesses the ability like fire manipulation, which introduces a fantastical aspect of typical science fiction. For example, Fantastic Four or even Doctor Strange. The story features time travel and alternate dimensions, key components of the genre, while also engaging with ethical dilemmas related to superpowers. Additionally, the trilogy reimagines traditional Arabic folklore, making these cultural narratives relevant in a modern context. Through its exploration of identity and belonging, Thunderbird reflects the human condition, merging imaginative storytelling with challenges to our understanding of reality and science. Sorry for indulging a bit in the academia, but now I will put both the academic and writer on leash. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I have to say that you really engage very well with the talks we had yesterday, because Kamal, Sci-Fi, excuse me, came up in the terms, and we had to, people really wanted a discussion of that. So you have really furthered the whole concept of the conference. And I just want to tell you that. Now, and I did really enjoy, because understanding the difference between sci-fi, speculative fiction, and then getting into magical realism and the different elements are really intrinsic in, the discussions that we've had so far. So you really, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Now I am going to have, I will. I am about to give Maria's introduction. Maria Dadouch is a celebrated author and educator, widely recognized in Arabic and international literary circles, with over 80 published books worldwide. A graduate of UCLA's Creative Writing Department, she received the Clara Carmichael Novel Scholarship in 2015 and the Untraditional Student Award in 2016. I need to look up more about that. Among her many accolades are the Sheikh Zayed Book Award in 2022, the Khalifa Educational Award, the Katara Award, the Arab Forum of Publishers Award, and the Abdul Hamid Showman Award for I Want Golden Eyes. Dadouch, there we go. Dadouch instructs the only MOOC on eDirect, where her course on writing has drawn over 75,000 learners. She's also a screenwriter for the acclaimed Syrian comedy series Mariana, a sought-after speaker and judge. She has participated in events such as the Sharjah Children's Reading Festival and the Riyadh and Abu Dhabi or Abu Dubai international book fairs. She has judged competitions including the RGC Guildford competition in Dubai in 2023, the Abdul Hamid Shoman Adventure Novel competition in 2024, and the Oman Speaks contest. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome her to the second presentation on the middle grade and young adult sci-fi panel for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I first would like to thank both of the Middle East Studies Centers in Austin and Arizona. And I want to thank Sonia for inviting us. Well, it was intimidating for me because it turned out that I know nothing about science fiction. All I know about is what I've heard my professor when I first joined the science fiction class, and her name was Anne Bauman, and she said, look, you start with a fact, a scientific fact, and then you let your imagination go wild and elaborate this fact, and you write a futuristic, believable, well-detailed world, and voila, start writing. So I want to take a moment to talk about my novel, I Want Golden Eyes. It has won the Hamid Schuman Award 2019 for science fiction, and it takes place in a futuristic city called Quartzia that is on the Comoros Island. In those islands, two realms exist. One above the ground called Quartzia, where only people with golden eyes live. They have high IQ, and they live a luxurious life and enjoy all the means of the country. And the second realm is below the ground, where literally below the ground, it's called the hive, and we're born with average IQ, like all of us, like many of us, and they live under strict rules and deprived of all rights. And then comes our main character. Her name is Dahlia, and she's a cleaner in Professor Adam's home. Professor Adam is a well-renowned scientist who engineers designer babies for the elite. And books are banned in the hive. And Dahlia couldn't resist the temptation of stealing and sneaking books from Professor Adam's library. And when he finds out her little secret, by Quartzia's laws, he claims claims her as a slave, and for 2 years. And usually limiteds is the name of people who are not golden eyes. Limiteds are not allowed above ground after sunset, but with Dahlia's new situation, as she's a slave and she has to stay permanently in the home of Professor Adam. So this is how she gets to read more extra library hours. She expands her knowledge, and by accident, she overhears a discussion between Professor Adam and creatures, ugly creatures called griffin bats. They're cloned. They're the police force in Quartzia, but they're cloned, and um, they were created to intimidate and humiliate the limited. And after listening to this discussion, she realized that people aren't just born with high IQ. They are enhanced depending on wealth and power. And this is how they get the high IQ. And when she discovers this, she decides she want to escape. And while waiting for the right moment to escape, she competes, uses Professor Adams' devices and to log in and to compete in math in the national contests for math. Actually, it's international contest for math, led by Quartzia or hosted by Quartzia. And she wins round after round. But to her surprise and to everyone's surprise, the final round takes place in real life. And when she showed up, everyone obviously was disappointed because she wasn't Golden Eyes. And when she wins, the authorities suddenly enforce a rule or a new law that says that only Golden Eyes can win or can claim the money. So the limiteds were watching the competitions, and they were like infuriated because it was like their dream came true, and it was that close for her to achieve their dream, and she couldn't. So they pressured the rulers to finally grant her the money, and she used the money to start an education channel, just to like give a means for others, make education accessible, and give equal chance to everyone in her community and her people to improve their conditions. So that was a brief summary about my novel. And Julie, get back to you.
Okay, I have some questions. Can you tell us what was some of the most challenging aspects of writing this book?
Well, obviously you need to do a lot of research because you need every single detail in the world has to be believable and imagined. Like they're not, and at the end of the century, they're not gonna wear clothes that we like the clothes we do. It has to be engineered somehow. Also, the vehicles and the buildings and everything. This another thing that was challenging is how painful it is when technology falls in the wrong hand and you need to write in detail how ugly this can be. So it's not easy to write about such sad details, you know. And Dahlia goes through a lot of trouble.
Speaking of Dahlia, how do you choose the character names? Do they carry a deeper significance?
Well, Dahlia is an Arabic name for the grape tree, a young grape tree. So yes, I usually try to choose names that have significance and strong meaning. You know, grape trees or grape leaves, branches, they climb up and they wouldn't settle for down. This is why I chose the name Dahlia.
Oh, so it is tied with trying to make it past.
Yeah.
So for your future writing projects, what do you want to write about next? Is there a particular inspiration?
You mean sci-fi or just in general?
Just in general.
Well, actually, it is a sci-fi series that I think it's not going to be less than maybe 10 sequels because it's keep elaborating in my mind for years now. So I'm dedicating next in 25 and 26 at least to like pull up the first few sequels, first few like 1 to 5 maybe.
Wow. It's always interesting to think, the process that you must go through. So that fascinates me. You mentioned at the beginning that, you didn't know as much about science fiction, but do you think science fiction as a discipline is changing?
Actually, I think a lot in common because I've read lots of science fiction novels and many of them highlight the fact that technology in the wrong hands could have perils. You know, because it gives a lot of power to to a privileged minority, and those have the intention to keep others, the majority in the bottom of the society, deprived of everything. And it's like they get rid of the ladder and they're destined, the rest are destined to serve and they're destined to, they do not have the right to dream because success is beyond their abilities and their traits. So I think many of the sci-fi novels elaborate on this fact or this narrative. And also, I think many of the sci-fi novels also talk a lot about this segregation in societies and how one of the majority would be the main character leading his people to a more fair life. So maybe these 2 points are always almost always present.
Thank you. You just mentioned that you've read a lot of sci-fi and I've had the pleasure of reading a lot of different types, but from your perspective, what are some similarities and differences between science fiction in the Middle East and elsewhere in the world?
Well, actually, I did not read many of to my embarrassment, the sci-fi in Arabic. So I can't really, help you with this. I think Sonia has a lot as well. She can like answer you way better than I can.
Okay. And then I guess one final question before we open this up to the proper question and answers portion. How do you decide whether a book idea should be for children or adults?
Well, the age, how old is your main character plays a role. If your main character is 14 and above, it's going to be a young adult novel. If he's like 12 to 14, it's upper middle grade. 9 to 12, it's lower middle grade. And at 8, it's going to be an early reader's book. And then younger, it's going to be a picture book. Of course, it's not really strict. It's not really that way. but this is how we start our ideas, because if you're 14 to 18, then basically your goal is to rescue the world or the city or the town or the country, or at least your neighborhood. A bit younger, it's going to be rescue your school, or it expands. So what are you trying to write also determines the age of your character.
Well, thank you so much for this formal portion. And so I think at this point, we'll open this up to questions and answers to both Maria Dadouch and Sonia Nimr. And I see that we already have Professor Mahmoud Azaz, who has a question for you. So I will turn it over to him for a question. And we'll just field questions. Please raise your hand and I'm happy to call on you. And then if we need to repeat things, because many people are speaking multiple languages, we're happy to do so.
Thank you, both of you, Dr. Nimr and Maria, for great presentations and also for your personal insights and touches. I have two questions. I think one is about the process of writing these creative pieces, and the second is about translating them. I will start with the first one, and it's open to both of you. So I would like to hear your take on the same question, if you don't mind it. I think both of you come to things from the standpoint of the other, if it's in a historical sense, in the context of Sonia Nimr, or the context of an interfaith, people who come to the world from different perspectives, different religions, and sometimes different ideologies. My question is, how do you see this conversation given what's happening now around us? I think that's a moment for enhancing this discourse for coexistence, peaceful existence between or among people who come from different backgrounds. How do you see this now in the children literature, and how we can make this as a mission, as a component of educating kids and the children?
So Sonia, I would like to take that.
Can I ask you a question back?
Sure, Sonia.
When you talk about peaceful relation between people, or as you put it, in general in the world, you mean?
In general in the world.
Or in our area in Palestine and the Middle East?
I meant it in general first. Broadly speaking, humans, as we have seen in different historical and in physical contexts, they come to things from different perspectives. And some of the problems that even we face in the geographical context has to do with a lot of misunderstanding. How do you see integrating this into the children's literature?
Okay. To start with, generally speaking, almost all science fiction books talk about saving the world, or but unfortunately, most of the people in the world don't see us as humans, that is, as one unity. And that's why people fight. I know that we should go and serve the earth and save the earth, but come to think of it, it's very difficult, Dr. Mahmoud, for me to write about saving the world, which I did actually in my novel. But then again, I cannot leave the context. I can't get out of the context that Noor is under occupation, that I am, as a writer, is under occupation. I cannot talk about understanding and about peace if I am under bombs. So that's why perhaps this worry has always been in the mind of the heroine of my book, at least of the trilogy, because she's always in the back of her mind, she knows that she's still under occupation.
Yeah, thanks. the second piece related to this, when translating these pieces of work to a different language, were you engaged in the process of translation by the translators? Or you left the work to the translators to reintroduce it in their own ways?
Usually, there is always a dialogue between, and I'm talking about my books, between me and the translator. And usually we work chapter by chapter. I mean, every time she finishes a chapter, we discuss. Sometimes there are little cultural explanations that I needed to explain, perhaps, that the translator either it's a completely different culture, so
Right.
it has to be a dialogue and discussion between the both of us about certain issues that the heroine of the books, the protagonist, feels, or expressions that she uses, or perhaps places that she goes to.
I would assume it has been a tough job for a translator, given some of the controversies around some of the themes that your works talk about. As you know, a key word in Arabic, when you translate this to English, sometimes you will find it hard to find the same linguistic equivalent in the target language. So I would assume the burden of the translator when they translate some of these works to a language like English, for example, going to be a tough job. And I think engaging you as an author is key in the success of the process.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Thank
true,
you.
especially
Yeah,
in the
thanks.
okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
All right, some space.
Mahmoud,
Yeah, go ahead,
allow me to.
Maria.
Yeah. It's coincided that the translator of the books that we're talking about in the session is the same. She's Marsha Links. She meant to be with us today, but unfortunately she couldn't. She's a great translator, actually, and I just wanna take the chance to send her my thanks when she listens to to the recording. She did a great job, and this, like Sonia said, it was a collaborative work, and she sent the chapters one by one, and she was all ears to hear what we were trying to say. Yeah.
Thank you. Julie, go ahead if you, I think, want Dina to make an announcement.
Dina Afrosiabi has a couple of words to say about this because she's suggested these wonderful two authors and work with them on a regular basis. So I'll hand the floor over to her.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sonia. Hello.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I just wanted to take the time to mention that I have translations of all of the Thunderbird trilogy available, and I'll put in a link where you can find that. And then I'm very excited to announce that Maria's book, I Want Golden Eyes, will be coming out in the spring. So you can look for that in May. And we are committed at CMES to publishing both young adult and science fiction works. So I'm always happy to meet authors who work in those genres and translators. And if anybody, I know there are a lot of teachers here, if you have any questions, we also have curricula available for some of our books. We have a curriculum that was designed for the Thunderbird. And I'll find the link to that and paste it also. But yeah, I would just encourage you all to check out those books. They're really fun. And yeah, hope you enjoy them.
Thank you so much for those words. And I think we'll go back to question and answers for the main portion of this for about 10 more minutes. And then we have the breakout room with the teachers for the last half hour. So, and I'm so impressed with the time differences and everything that people have managed to appear. I know I saw a couple of hands, and I'm sorry, I'm just looking at multiple screens. So hold on. I believe there was another question. Okay, I am not seeing any additional questions at this time, but I do have a couple additional follow-ups. I think I've already asked this question to Maria, so I'd love to hear Dr. Sonia's thought pattern on this too. What are the most challenging aspects of writing the trilogy? So the Thunderbird trilogy.
Oh, well, actually, I'm going to borrow what Maria said, it's the research, because every writer actually is responsible for every word that they say, and we have to be accurate. The other challenge that I had is as I said earlier, the fight between, again, the historian and the writer, because I was trying to my best to balance between history and storytelling, so that one doesn't become dominant in the book, and just to put just enough history for readers to understand the period, at the same time not to break the flow of the storytelling. So that was a challenging thing, actually, because being a historian and an academic, it was a big fight, actually.
I think on average, hearing all the authors during the course of this and all of the people who write on sci-fi, people have said about 10 years on average to fully, if they had other things that they were doing at the same time, but the research is taken about that time as well, about a decade to each universe. And then I asked about one of the universes that I read about yesterday, and I asked if there was that sci-fi had different religions, like Saint Cohen of the others and a robotics church. And I was like, how do you have charts across your walls? Because I would not be able to keep all these things straight if I didn't have, illustrations. And he said, no, I don't have charts, but I would need them.
Yeah, it's true, but it's just also I think I didn't want to put much drawings or charts or even maps in the book, thinking that I will leave most of it to the imagination of the children or of the readers. Usually they have an immense imagination, and their imagination is even bigger than ours. So I left it to them to, with as much little description as I could, but in the same time trying to keep them curious about these places that I invented, especially in book 3, actually.
Um, Thank you. And you just got a question from one of the younger attendees. I really like the Thunderbird trilogy, and I want to know whether you are working on any new books or series for young adult readers.
Thank you. Actually, I am at the moment, but this time it's not science fiction. It is a reality, sort of reality, but of course with adventure. So I'm trying to write a book about certain period in Palestine, which is the early days of the British Mandate and the early days of the Zionist project in Palestine. So it's about a revolt that took place in Palestine between 1936 and 1939, with the protagonist being a 15-year-old girl. So it is a bit historical novel rather than a fantasy or science fiction.
Okay. The next question I had for Maria was, how did you choose the Comoros Islands? What inspired you about that setting?
The Comoros Islands, you mean, right? Yeah. Well, I needed and at first I insisted that it would be an Arabic place, an Arabic country, and the Comoros Islands, to our surprise, is an Arabic country. Little we heard about it. So I chose it because we know little about it, because I will not go through the difficulty of trying to erase what my reader already knows about the country and try to draw another whole different futuristic world in his mind. We all already know very little about the Comoros Islands, and this is how it was easy for me to imagine Quartzia and make it believable to my reader.
So it always, yeah, it's constantly about learning. I think that's my favorite part about sci-fi or science fiction. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I misused the terms. Now we're getting down to the last couple of minutes. In case anybody from the general audience wants to ask a question, we could take maybe one or two more. And then I will turn it over. I'll work with Dr. Abby Nimr on the breakout rooms.
And I just thank you both for coming to speak with us. This was so wonderful to hear, and it's just so inspiring, the work that you're both doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, I'll now work with Abby to get the breakout rooms going, and I thank the general audience for joining us. I will be sending a follow-up survey to everybody who attended to get more feedback, and also recommendations about science fiction in translation. Because one thing that we've decided from this conference is we can create a list of all of the sci-fi, whether it's Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, or Turkish, that is translated. I think there was even some Kurdish sci-fi recommendations yesterday. So I am very hopeful of a real lasting resource from this event, and you both have added to it so wonderfully. So I want to thank you again on behalf of UACMES, but I think you've now heard from all of the centers. We're just greatly appreciative.
So as a recommendation for a sci-fi book to translation, I recommend لغز الكرة الزجاجية, which is the mystery of the glass ball that won the Sheikh Zayed Award, the last Sheikh Zayed Award. I'm not sure if it was translated to English. It was translated to other, I think, 2 or 3 languages, but I'm not sure about English. So I can connect you with the publisher if you are interested. It takes place at 2050 maybe. So yeah, and it has the glass ball is an invention. So I think you can categorize it as a sci-fi book. And also it also talks about saving the animals, the desert animals, and the Arabian Sahara. So I think it falls into diversity and of raising awareness about other countries and etc.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Mahmoud.
Thank you. And it fits in perfectly with sort of the way UACMES is going with AI and environmental studies. So sci-fi is definitely amongst these themes. Well, I'm about to start moving people to one breakout room for the teachers that are here. So, great one.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for attending and for bearing with us. Thank you, Sonia. Good night, everyone. Good night for us in the East. Good, happy rest of the day for you in the West.